everything we know about Welt Yang. Welt Yang, or by his true name Joachim Nokian Virtanen, is a member of the Astral Express, a branch of the Nameless, a faction following the path of Trailblaze. Welt comes from the Hoyoverse version of our planet, our Earth. He is the very same Welt that appears in Honkai 3rd. Welt was born in 1947 to Elias Nokian Virtanen and his wife Henrietta Yang. Elias was a librarian for the Imperial Academy of London and specialized in ancient writings. At the same time, he was also helping the Schicksal Laboratory 42 and subsequently Schicksal North American branch in studying the Dead Sea Scrolls. Schicksal is the main organization in Honkai 3rd. They practically control the world from the shadows. Joachim followed his dad around, and as such, he spent a lot of his time around scientists. Here he meets Dr. Tesla, and the two become close friends. Joachim also meets Dr. Einstein, and the next person who I'm gonna need to explain, Welt Joyce. Welt Joyce is the first Herrscher of the current era, the Herrscher of Reason. Now, for a quick explanation of what Herrschers are. They are godlike beings that have dominion over elements, laws of physics, or reality. There is a total of 13 Herrschers, and they are born when Honkai energy creates a Herrscher core inside an individual. The cores can be extracted from Herrschers while still alive or after their deaths to be repurposed for other uses. The Herrscher's main goal is to destroy civilization, but due to a certain pink elf doing something in the previous era, the Herrschers of the current era are not mindless slaughter machines, and now they have a choice whether to be on the side of humanity or against it. On January 1st, 1952, the first Honkai eruption, or impact, happened in Berlin, killing 300,000 people. The only survivor being a man who did not remember his name or his past. This man was the first Herrscher, and his core housed the souls of all 300,000 people that died in the eruption. The amnesiac first Herrscher was then captured by Schicksal, and was experimented on for 3 years. During these 3 years, Otto Apocalypse, the leader of Schicksal, communicated with him under an alias through correspondence, helping him stay sane during the experiments. In 1955, the first Herrscher was transferred to Laboratory 42 in London. Here he meets Dr. Einstein and Dr. Tesla. And also here, Eins gave him the name Welt. I'm going to call Einstein Eins, for clarity's sake. During his stay in London, Welt met Elias and was enjoying peaceful times with the two doctors, until they were summoned by the North American branch. On the way there, Eins gave Welt a forged passport, where he saw written the name Welt Joyce, and since Welt had no surname, he adopts the name Joyce. In his travels, he meets Professor Planck, Dr. Schrödinger, Edison, Schicksal's top fighter Reana, Joachim, and Ada, an AI from the previous era that was found by and tutored by Elias. I guess I should now explain what I mean by previous era. Okay, so Earth gets reset every 50,000 years by the Herrscher of Finality. And by the current point in Honkai 3rd, Earth was already reset quite a few times. The previous era was doomed to fail in beating the final Herrscher, so as a lost hope, they managed to preserve a few people in cryostasis, along with the high-tech and hidden bases they created, in order to help the next era defeat the finality. This boosted the technological advancement of the current era by a lot. While Ada was analyzing some data from the previous era, the doctors and Welt went on a holiday. He had some shipping moments with Eins, and at this location he meets with Fuhua, an important character for Honkai 3rd, but I'm not gonna explain her right now. Anyway, they talk for a bit and then she gives him a gift. Later, during the same day, while Welt goes to take a bath, he meets with Otto Apocalypse, the overseer of Schicksal, and reveals himself to be the person who was sending letters to Welt while he was being experimented on. Otto wanted to adopt Welt as his brother, and to make Welt his successor as overseer. I'm not going to dive into Otto's character, but I believe that he truly wanted to groom Welt to be the leader of humanity after he was gone. But Welt refuses Otto and leaves him alone. As of this point in time, the relations between the NA branch and Schicksal have grown pretty dire, and they are silently planning to separate themselves from Schicksal. After Ada finishes analyzing the data from the previous era, they get a recording and a location. The recording told the story of how the 12th Herrscher from their era was born, and in the location they find the 9th Divine Key, the Star of Eden. I'm gonna explain what that thing does when we get to Yang's abilities. After they get their hands on the Divine Key, they start fiddling with it, trying to get Welt to learn how to use it, as a possible contingency plan if Otto were to come after them. After reaching a safe place, they get attacked by Dr. Schrödinger, half transformed into a Honkai beast. During this fight, she reveals to everyone that Welt is the first Herrscher of the current era, and forces him to awaken his powers. And oh boy, he does awaken them. Now, going back a few hours prior to this attack, the NA branch planned to create a device to turn the Honkai energy into regular energy. But Otto's plans requires Honkai energy to continue existing, and as such, he threatens Elias to kill Joachim if he doesn't sabotage the device. This results in the device turning into a Honkai bomb, powerful enough to possibly give birth to another Herrscher. Edison uses some unknown power, not from this world. Now, it'd be insane if Hoyo planned the Aeons and the paths this far back, but this dialogue kind of makes me think of Aeons. Anyway, she sacrifices herself by shoving the bomb in the ocean. Back in present time, since Reana's body is more soulium than flesh, and since that soulium was given to her by Otto, who can control it, he takes control of her body and kills Elias when he confesses about what he had done. Now, to explain soulium, they are nanomachines. They are nanomachines that come from the previous era, and they can be used to make weapons, make armor, store information, and Otto also uses it to transfer his consciousness between different robotic bodies, since the man is 500 years old. Meanwhile, Joachim tries to come to NA by hiding on Planck's helicopter, only to be found out by her. We don't know why Joachim decided to do this. He probably felt left out and wanted to be with everyone. Back on the ground, Otto manages to wound the doctors, leading to Schrödinger using Reana's divine key, the Abyss Flower, to save Tesla and Heinz. But at the same time, she effectively turned them immortal. Welt and Otto begin fighting using their divine keys, but Otto overpowers him and crashes Planck's helicopter. As Otto gives his villain monologue, Welt uses the gift given to him by Fuhua, a drug with the ability to suppress soulium, and allows Reana to take control of her body long enough to stab herself with Abyss Flower, fully getting rid of Otto's control. In response to this, Otto decides to nuke New York, where Joyce and I currently reside. Reana sacrifices herself, destroying the nuke's detonator, and Joyce creates a 20-kilometer shield to protect the entirety of New York. Doing so, the wounds from his fight with Otto open up, and he completely depletes his energy keeping up the shield. Joachim finds him as he lay dying, and tries to keep him from bleeding out. Joyce passes the core of reason, the name Welt, and the burden of protecting the world to Joachim, after which Joyce passes away. Joachim, together with the doctors and other scientists, remake the North American Schicksal branch into a new organization, Anti-Entropy. Joachim takes up his mother's surname, and the name that was entrusted to him by the hero who saved New York, becoming Welt Yang. After founding Anti-Entropy, Welt goes into hiding with Ada, running away from his responsibility as the sovereign of Anti-Entropy for 2 years before returning to his duties. In 1991, Welt receives intel about a Herrscher killer that Schicksal is developing, and he attacks an envoy escorted by Valkyries. He easily dispatches the Valkyries, knocking away one of them a long distance. He realizes that the Herrscher killer is not a weapon, but a human, as the blood from that Valkyrie started burning him. As for what the Valkyries are, well, women are more resistant to Honkai corruption than men, and as such they form the primary fighting force of Schicksal, and they're called Valkyries. The few men who have high resistance to Honkai corruption are called knights. Anyway, back on topic, he later finds the Valkyrie with the man that rescued her. They are Cecilia Shariak and Siegfried Kaslana, the mother and father of Honkai 3's main character, Kiana Kaslana. Welt and Ainz separated the two. Ainz extracts blood from Cecilia, while Welt deals with Siegfried. After they're done taking her blood samples, they leave the couple alone. In the year 2000, the second eruption, or impact, happens. The second Herrscher was born in Siberia. Welt meets once again with an older Siegfried, and the two make a truce while also becoming friends. Welt's purpose is to see if the second will side with humanity, or will become its enemy. If that would be the case, then he'd fight and kill the second. Welt, together with Siegfried and Teresa, Otto's granddaughter, find the second Herrscher, who turns out to be hostile. Teresa gets grievously injured, and Siegfried is forced to retreat in order to save her life. Now, Welt is left alone to fight against Sirin, the Herrscher of Void. They have an epic fight, but in the end, since Welt is not really compatible with his core, since it kills him from the inside out, he eventually loses the fight. But he already saw this coming, and as such he instructed Ainz and Tesla to fire a nuclear bomb at them. Yep, Welt once again got nuked. Welt escapes unscathed, while Sirin not so much. As Welt prepares to deliver the final blow, he gets shot by Otto, who allows the second to escape. Otto would have killed Welt right there if not for Siegfried rescuing him in the last second. Sirin retreats to the moon to heal. Oh yeah, I forgot to say that she has a dragon-type Honkai beast capable of going to the moon. Anyway, here, the Wheel of Honkai, a thing that I won't go into detail, gives Sirin 4 more Herrscher cores. Thunder, Wind, Death, and Fire, because one wasn't apparently enough. After gaining her new powers, she begins to throw rocks at the Earth, which yeah, that's not a good thing, and gives the world an ultimatum, to send Welt to the moon to face her. Or either she'd continue throwing rocks at the planet's surface. Welt fights Sirin on the moon, but he's obviously overpowered by Miss 5 Herrschers in one, and is subsequently killed by Sirin. Although Welt is not the strongest Herrscher, he is the smartest. Before dying, he hid his consciousness inside the core of reason, waiting to attack Sirin from inside her own body. After some time, Fuhua uses her divine key to infiltrate Sirin's mind. Inside her mindscape, the two fight until Hua unleashes an attack strong enough to sever Sirin's connection to the Wheel of Honkai. Doing this weakens Sirin's mind enough for Welt to act without restriction. In reality, Fuhua becomes unable to fight anymore, and Sirin steals half of her divine key. Now the girl has 6 Herrscher cores and 1 divine key. In order to test the divine key that creates illusory dreams, she targets Cecilia and Siegfried, a decision that would cost her her life. The two show Sirin what it's like to have a happy family life, while in the background, Welt makes them realize it's an illusion. In reality, Sirin's dragon pet dies, waking her up from the dream she created, and tries to kill the couple, leading to Welt rescuing them. Meanwhile, also in reality, Ainz and Tesla begin extracting the cores from her body, while Welt keeps her busy in her mindscape. The two manage to extract one core before Sirin stops them. Afterwards, Sirin destroys their robot and expels the core of reason from her body, before shattering it and dropping it on the robot, causing Welt's consciousness to seep into it. After Siegfried rips out Sirin's cores, her power begins going out of control, and Welt uses the last of his strength to protect the couple from the outburst. Seeing that Sirin lost her powers, Otto once again decides to nuke a Herrscher. Cecilia uses her divine key to shield Siegfried, and then spends her last moments comforting Sirin, until the nukes kill them both. After the second eruption, Siegfried returns Welt's core to Anti-Entropy, where he later recreates his own body with the authority of reason. In 2005, 5 years after the second eruption, he meets a young Himeko Murata while teaching Ainz's college class, and he travels with her to New Mexico after she decides to investigate some alien rumors. In truth, what she saw was Anti-Entropy testing their robot, and in order to distract her, he tagged along with her until they went back to California. After they come back, Himeko's father pays a visit, and Welt instantly tells that something is wrong with that man, but with no evidence, he leaves him be. Welt eventually finds out about Ryusuke, Himeko's father's obsession with space travel and aliens, and confronts him about it. Ryusuke was actually in a partnership with a little alien from a race I won't go explaining. Just imagine their true forms are Lovecraftian tentacle things. In order to fight Welt, Ryusuke kills his partner and steals his power. But he is still no match for the Herrscher, and Welt kills him. As for Honkai 3's Himeko, this event was the turning point in her life. Welt couldn't bear to tell her the truth, and left it to Ainz to lie about her father being in an accident. In order to find the truth about the accident, Himeko joins Schicksal as a Valkyrie, a road that would eventually lead to her death around 11 years later. Around the year 2014-2015, Welt infiltrated Schicksal as a teacher at Saint Freya Academy, a school for Valkyries founded by Teresa Apocalypse, and the place where the three protagonists of Honkai 3 begin their story. Meanwhile, back at Anti-Entropy, Cocolia, yes, Cocolia from Star Rail is an XP, what a surprise! Creates clones of Welt Joyce and takes over leadership of the organization. The Joyce clones are pretty much idiots drunk with power that do not resemble the original Joyce in the slightest. Anyway, their plan was to go to Saint Freya and capture Raiden May, the third Herrscher. And as you can imagine, the Joyce clone gets his ass kicked by both the Herrscher of Thunder and by Kiana. As clone Joyce pathetically runs away, he runs right into Welt, who quickly gets rid of the eyesore, and then he returns to Ainz and Tesla. I'll make a parenthesis here. I have no clue how Himeko didn't recognize Welt when they are both teachers at the same school at the same time. Teresa, I understand. Her memories of the second eruption were wiped by Otto. But how in the world Himeko doesn't recognize him? I know that I pretty much summarized an entire visual novel and 2 mangas, but it is what it is. In 2016, Welt and Ainz go to a previous era base located deep underwater, called the Deep. Inside the base there was a device called the Eye of the Deep, which could make portals into the Sea of Quanta. By all means, I am not going to explain what the Sea of Quanta is. The two go inside the sea and find Kevin Castellana trapped inside. All you need to know about Kevin is that he was the strongest being on the planet. Anyway, Kevin is trapped and he wants to get out. Welt is not happy about this and sends Ainz back to reality, while he sacrifices his own body once again in order to create barriers to keep Kevin sealed. 1 year later, in 2017, Cocolia sends a distress signal to Ainz and Teresa, who are now allied, to come to the Deep in order to give them the Gem of Desire. The gems are practically weaker Herrscher cores. After they arrive, Cocolia tells Ainz, Teresa and Bronya that she threw the gem into the Sea of Quanta, and after some stuff happens in the Deep, Bronya jumps inside the sea. When she wakes up, she is met by a shadow of Welt, who took the form of his young self, of Joachim. Welt gives Bronya some trials, and after she completes them, he gives her the Core of Reason, making Bronya the new first Herrscher. After becoming a Herrscher, Bronya rescues Zele, who was trapped for years in the Sea of Quanta, and as they prepare to leave, Kevin confronts them. Even though he doesn't want to fight, Bronya still considers him an enemy and attacks him, leading to Kevin literally ripping out the Core of Reason from her body. Welt once again recreates his own body from the core and protects the girls from Kevin. He invites the Herrscher to join his organization, but Welt refuses. After which, Kevin uses the Gem of Desire to escape the sea, and the three of them escape as well. After they meet again in reality, Welt gives Bronya the Core of Reason, and they begin a mentor-student relationship. He teaches her all the ins and outs of the Authority of Reason. From this point, until the end of Honkai 3's first part, Welt stays a background character, popping up here and there when there is science talk. After the threat of the Honkai is over, Welt steps down as sovereign, and Anti-Entropy merges once again with Schicksal. Welt and Bronya start their own studio called the Reason Studio, and she also returns the Core of Reason to Welt. During this time, he and Tesla adopt a young clone of Joyce, and they name him Geoffrey Joyce Yang. 8 years after Honkai 3's Part 1, in 2026, Welt goes on a business trip in Saint Fountain. Here he meets with Void Archives, who is using one of Otto's Soulium bodies. As for who Void Archives is, well, I'll shorten his name to VA. VA is the first Divine Key, the Key of Revelation. It's a cube who has the power to mimic the other Divine Keys, and possibly other weapons as well. And it's also equipped with an AI whose sole purpose is the extermination of all Honkai. VA wants Welt's help in getting rid of all Honkai, but he refuses, making VA threaten Welt to use his son instead. Welt somehow gets rid of VA for a short while and gets rescued together with his son by Schicksal Squad 3. And they get sent away from Saint Fountain to Cairo on a train. While on the train, VA once again appears out of nowhere and proposes the same deal to Welt. But they get interrupted by Joffrey, who manifests the authority of reason. Now it's presumed that the two leave Joffrey in the care of his mother, Tesla, and then they start hunting the aliens that were currently invading the world. 4 years later, in 2029, Welt and VA go through a Stargate and find themselves inside the Sky People spaceship. The Sky People, or I believe Welt calls them the ones above in Star Rail, are a race of aliens that defeated the Honkai on their homeworld. They hunt worlds plagued by the Honkai in order to harvest all the energy from it, destroying it in the process. On the spaceship, they find files about other worlds. One of those files containing data about Star Rail's Himeko. In order to redeem himself for leading his Himeko to death, he decides to try and keep this one safe. They eventually get rescued from the Sky People ship and are supposedly brought back to Earth by the alien race that once helped Himeko's father. Now we get in Star Rail territory. It is unknown if the ship that was supposed to bring them back home crashed, or they did get back home and then went into space again. But Himeko finds Welt and VA stranded on the planet Salsoto while she was gathering materials for Herta. They get rescued by her and become the first passengers of the Express, and they travel around with Himeko for a few years. Around the time March gets defrosted and recruited by Himeko, VA leaves the Astral Express for unknown reasons. And then the main story of Star Rail happens. As of right now, Welt is still the know-it-all grandpa of the Express. Oh my god, I'm finally done with his backstory. As for combat abilities, Welt uses the Ninth Divine Key, Cosmic Harmony, or more commonly known as the Star of Eden. The Divine Keys are weapons made from the cores of the dead Herschels of the previous era. It has the power to control gravity and create quasi-black holes. The Star of Eden had its appearance changed multiple times over the years, and currently it has been transformed into a cane by Welt. And the power that we haven't seen Welt use it in Star Rail so far is the Authority of Reason. The power of the Herrscher of Reason is to be able to create anything as long as you can understand its structure. I know I'm doing it a disservice by only saying that, but it does boil down to if you understand how it's built, you can create it from energy. So yeah, if you're not a smart person, this power is useless. Thank god Joachim is extremely smart. As for other stuff about Welt, we don't know much about his mother, Henrietta. What we have on her is that she was an archaeologist, that she was a German-Chinese mix, and that she was so busy that she could only come home for about 10 days a year. She never really appears in the story, even after Elias dies and Joachim becomes Welt. Contrary to popular belief, Welt and Tesla are not married when they adopt Joffrey, although it has been teased for a long time that they have feelings for each other. Welt has good eyesight. He only wears glasses because he thinks that he looks cool with them. I mean, why you would give yourself bad eyesight if you could reconstruct your body? And speaking of body, his body was destroyed 2 times already, and because he understands the structure of the human body, he still managed to remake it from nothing using the Authority of Reason. This could prove useful in the future if he ever gets quote-unquote killed in Star Rail. Welt is a huge mecha nerd. In order to get some extra funds for Anti-Entropy, he created a mecha movie series with a giant robot ninja called Arahato. If you have Welt in Star Rail, his phone case has the image of that robot. As of present time in Star Rail, Welt is around 90 years old, if not a tiny bit younger. But just because he's old doesn't mean he's a scrawny old man. Nah man, this guy is ripped beneath all those layers of clothing. As for nationality, Welt comes from Finland, so yeah, be happy those 5 pins that play the game. Can Welt beat Acheron? No. No, he can't. Herschers do not come close to Emanators. Just because he threatened her once doesn't mean he can beat her. Before giving his core to Bronya, it was killing him from the inside, and couldn't use its full power. So he was one of the weakest Herschers. And I don't outright call him the weakest, because Wendy was a thing. Even if now the core doesn't have side effects anymore, and he can fully use it, he can't compare to an emanator. The only thing from Earth that can compare to an emanator is Kiana after becoming the Hersher of Finality. Finally, I think this is pretty much it. I hope for my sanity that I didn't miss anything. See you next time.